Secretary of State Anthony Blinken on Thursday appealed for global unity to push back on Russian military threats against Ukraine, saying Moscow seeks to destabilize a post-Cold War Europe that is whole, free, and at peace. The Secretary's remarks come amid heightened fears in the U.S. and Europe that Russian President Vladimir Putin will launch an invasion against Ukraine. The Biden administration has undertaken a fervent diplomatic push to prepare allies and partners in Europe to impose coordinated economic sanctions if Russian troops move across the border, while seeking to provide an off ramp to Moscow to pull back from the brink of open war. It's a crisis with global consequences, and it requires global attention and action, Blinken said in remarks delivered from Berlin, where he is convening with European allies ahead of a high stakes meeting with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on Friday. Where's the rest of this? The secretary said that the U.S. prefers diplomacy with Russia to tamp down what he criticized a contrived crisis, and that the administration is appealing to the international community to make clear the cost to Russia if it seeks conflict and to stand up to all the principles that protect all of us. Once the principles of sovereignty and self determination are thrown out, the secretary continued, you revert to a world in which the rules we shaped together over decades erode and then vanish. Blinken's appeal for global unity in the face of Russian aggression follows remarks from President Biden on Wednesday that Putin is likely to move it to Ukraine, where Moscow has positioned more than 100,000 troops on the border of the former Soviet states. But the president said that differences remain among U.S. allies and partners on what a proportionate response looks like if Russia takes action short of a large scale military invasion. There are differences in NATO as to what countries are willing to do depending on what happens, Biden said during a press conference from the White House on Wednesday night, referring to member countries of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki issued a statement clarifying the president's remarks, saying that the Russians have an extensive playbook of aggression short of military action, including cyber attacks and preliminary tactics that could be met with a proportionate reciprocal action by the U.S. and allies, short of massive economic sanctions that are likely to reverberate on the economies of the U.S. and Europe. So what she's saying is, if they put enough sanctions on Russia, so many of them, they'll also affect the U.S. because we're tied to the economies of other nations. Underscoring that point, the Treasury Department on Thursday announced sanctions on 4 Ukrainians that it says are connected to a disinformation operation headed by Russian intelligence services intended to destabilize Ukraine. The White House has condemned what it says is a Russian campaign of disinformation and propaganda aimed at painting Ukraine as a provoking conflict against at painting Ukraine as provoking conflict against Russia and creating a pretext for invasion. So the White House is accusing the Russian government of spreading misinformation about Ukraine to make Ukraine look as if they're the aggressors, even though they're the ones that are being invaded possibly by Russia. When I first read this article, because I always try to just skim through a little bit before doing the story, I guess, I saw the part about global unity and I started to wonder, what is he talking about? Are these nebulous terms, these things that don't have a defined meaning? Because global unity has sometimes been for, in the case of Yemen, right, the U.S. to partner up with another country, referring to Saudi Arabia here, and then go over there and start attacking and killing innocent people. Um, Sometimes it's been to sanction another country, right, with some other partner and doing the same thing. But it's also sometimes been to have agreements like the Iran nuclear deal, which was really good until it got ripped up by the previous president. So you never know exactly what they're planning on doing until they actually state it outright. Under most circumstances, I'm not really a fan of because I've talked about sanctions are just another form of war. They're economic war. So you punish the country economically with putting these things that usually have more of a devastating impact on regular people than the figures at the top. It's a lesson we learned from Mike Gravel. But do I prefer those to the U.S. sending troops over there? Yes. And I will say, at the very least, I do like what appears to be not just the U.S., trying to send countries, trying to go in alone and get involved in things that have nothing to do with it by itself. It seems as if they're actually trying to have an entire, as Blinken said, international community come and also condemn this through, various means, because they admit they're not entirely convinced on what to do here. So I hope that Ukraine doesn't get invaded by Russia. And I hope that it doesn't get so awful that the U.S. has to start sending troops, because we were in 7 wars for how many years? We finally get out of 2 of them. So I'm cautiously optimistic, I guess is the way to put it.